Small business, big advice. Welcome to the Very Good Marketing Podcast, where small business owners, employees, or just marketing fanatics can learn how to grow a business on a budget without wasting any money.
Welcome to the Very Good Marketing Podcast. My name is Shannon and I am here with marketing consultant and expert Amy Miocevich, and today we are going to bust 10 small business marketing myths that may be holding you back from reaching your goals. So Amy, why this topic?
So I think that a lot of micro businesses and small business owners, they get a little bit overwhelmed by marketing, and a lot of the time there's certain things that I've come across that people will kind of tell me that they're convinced about when it comes to marketing, and they'll it's something they've always believed is true, so it's kind of holding them back from trying new things, or it might be holding them back from reaching their goals. And it's just dialogue that's been spread around the marketing industry or maybe the small business industry, and so many of them just aren't true. So I wanted to take the opportunity, before we really start diving into marketing process and methodology, if we can kind of bust some of those myths, and I can give you some of my feedback as a marketing expert on what stuff's real, what stuff's fake.
Okay, beautiful. So I guess, we do work in that small business marketing industry. So we have got a few clients and we've heard some of these rumours circulating.
Yeah.
The first myth that I would like you to bust is that there's some kind of secret trick to marketing.
This is a really interesting one. I think that when you're practicing you're in your technical craft and you come up to marketing as a small business owner and you don't have a lot of experience in marketing, you can feel very overwhelmed and it can seem kind of daunting. It can seem a little bit like you're in deep water, I guess. It's a nice way of explaining it. Is you're really kind of feeling around, you don't really know the way to go. And the people that are doing really well, it's hard sometimes to understand what they're doing. So it seems like they've got this magic formula that they're kind of holding for themselves and not telling anyone about. And I have a really good story about this that gets me. It's sometimes because we don't offer every single marketing service under the sun in our agency, a lot of the time I'll look at other agencies and think that they know something that we don't know about a particular marketing method. Yeah. And it's never true. But they market themselves like they've got something that we don't have. And
that's a strategy in itself, though. It's we've got the secret, and only we can help you achieve your goals.
Your goals, yeah. You see it all the time. If you've ever seen ads online on Facebook and stuff from people selling a lead generator, the secret trick that's going to get you to, 7-figure income in 7 days, that kind of stuff. It makes you think that there is some secret thing out there. There isn't. But about a year ago, we were looking as an agency to explore kind of our lead generation techniques, and we engaged an agency over in the UK. And they were an agency, and we were not a conflict because, they only dealt with companies in the UK and we dealt with ones here, and they were supposed to be leaders in the industry. And we engaged them to help us kind of amplify our marketing campaigns and learn a bit that we could help customers with. And it took 6 weeks. They put together this odd campaign, and at every point I was like, where is it? Where's the secret marketing trick that makes them so special? I couldn't see it in the ads. I couldn't see it in the copy. I couldn't see it in the landing page they'd created. I was waiting and I was waiting and I was waiting. Anyway, after 6 weeks of them putting this big campaign together and us paying an absolute fortune for the work.
For the mystery.
Yep. I looked into it, and it was so poor that I honestly could not believe my eyes. I did not understand what was in it that I didn't already know that we couldn't do ourselves. And they'd kind of sold me on this magic formula they had tried and tested. And really what they were doing was implementing the same strategy and the same information that we already know, but they've just done it that many times that they don't have to stumble on their feet. So they know what to try straight away. So they can then spend their time kind of fixing it and tweaking it. And it was one of those big lessons that I've learned where I'm like, hey, I think we need to be more confident in the things that we know to be true, right? And I think that's the same for any small business. If you have tried something in the past, or if you want to try something, you kind of need to have the confidence to go, maybe I know more than I think about my business and my customers and what they're going to like and what they're not going to like.
Yeah.
It's a big myth that there's a really secret formula out there that only so many people know. It's absolutely not true. And I want to make sure that we can bust it right now so that small business owners don't feel like they're treading water out there in this big ocean of unknown marketing channels and techniques, because you probably know more than you think.
And it's so funny because you are a professional in this industry, and you kind of bought into that myth that someone else out there has this key and this solution to marketing your business. Which kind of takes us to the second myth, which is that you do need formal education and a qualification in marketing to be good at it.
Well, fun fact, I don't have any formal qualification in marketing at all. I never studied marketing. And I think that the principles that we practice every day, they're actually common sense principles a lot of the time. Yes, there's technology behind it, but because it changes so quickly, we have to keep relearning everything we do all the time. Like Instagram changes their algorithm constantly in their platforms, and we're still always trying to stay on top of what's going on. But there's a really great book by Robert Galdoni called Influence, The Power of Persuasion. And it's an older book, but it is absolutely fantastic. And it goes through these basic human psychological principles that we all get kind of persuaded by. And I fell into the trap. I saw all these ads and I fell into the trap with this other agency that I was just mentioning. It was like textbook a marketing hook. And this book in particular talks about certain principles like reciprocity, which are employed in a lot of marketing techniques, that it's like a way of adding value in exchange for someone's interest. So it's little things like that where we employ those techniques within our campaigns, but they come from this basic need to reciprocate as individuals. And that's all marketing is. It's just kind of basic human instinct stuff. So a lot of the time, if you're in your particular craft and you know your customers as well as you do, there isn't, like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It doesn't need to be something flashy and clever. Like, you probably already know what needs to be done, and you don't need a formal education to implement it. But you probably do need, if you're going to implement it yourself, you're probably going to need some support in some capacity. But here's the other thing I want to mention is when you are getting help from someone else, whether you come and engage us to build your website for you, you still really do need a bit of a basic understanding about what you're trying to do with that website. Because otherwise, you're not meeting us halfway. I mean, we can bring this technical expertise. We want you to be able to bring the specific knowledge about your company so that together we can come up with the best outcome. So no formal education required, but there is a certain amount of learning you can do online. You can listen to podcasts like this one that just kind of help you elevate that knowledge a little bit so that you feel more like you're in control of the marketing that you're doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess, as with any element of running a business, you need to be able to understand your goals, whether they need to be your financial goals or your long-term growth goals. Marketing kind of underpins all of that, so you need to know how marketing will underpin and support
your strategy,
those goals,
and connect together.
But then in that sense, if you do onboard an agency or, even if you do hire someone to work in-house for your marketing, does it have to be expensive? Do you have to spend a lot of money and allocate a large section of your budget to be successful? Yeah,
so I think that's another thing that is definitely a myth. Because it seems so unknown and foreign to most small business owners who are practiced in their craft, they think that it's not accessible to bring it in-house and do parts of it themselves. Same way they may think it's kind of one or the other. So do you outsource it and do you spend a lot of money? Do you keep it in-house? Does that cost a lot of money? Where does the balance lie? And to that, I think I have to kind of explain this thing happening at the moment, and I don't know if you're comfortable with it as well, but there's like this this search for a unicorn marketer. Have you heard about that a bit?
I've seen a little bit bubbling within networks on social media, like LinkedIn.
So I think when it comes to marketing, because the breadth of stuff is so big, like under marketing, if you think about it, you're talking about particular marketing digital channels. So SEO and SEM, Facebook ads, they all require a different specialty, which means they probably require individuals with different experience. You've got copywriting, social media management, graphic design, you've got website development, you've got website photography, user experience. Because marketing is so broad, a lot of companies go, I'm going to keep marketing in-house. So they look for a marketing consultant or a marketing coordinator, and they fall into this trap of kind of finding someone, paying them a good salary and hoping that they're this marketing unicorn when they're not really an expert in any of those disciplines. So they're kind of half doing a lot of stuff. So you might not end up with the same results if you took that budget and split it between different professionals in certain industries that can help you achieve your goals. It's probably going to end up, maybe it costs you the same, but the results are going to end up a lot better.
Different, yeah.
But you can't really, it's not as easy as just going one or the other. I think if you actually build the right foundations, then you'll know which marketing you want to execute, and you can look at them individually and say, okay, well, social media I'm going to keep in-house, and the reason I'm going to do that is because of this and this and this. So then when you go to hire someone internally or upskill someone or find someone part-time, you know what skills you're looking for, so it's a lot easier to be able to hire someone and not get lost in the recruitment process and be let down. So I think that that's a myth out there. You don't need to do one or the other. One isn't better than the other, but using your own marketing strategy and actively working through the options and exploring them all is probably a better way of looking at it.
Yeah, I guess a similar sort of specialty that you would look at is finance. And with that in-house example, you know, a lot of the time they are looking for somebody to fill 10 different roles. But you wouldn't expect that of somebody, you know, hiring someone to work in your accounts team, expecting them to do accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, invoicing, like all of these different
tax compliance, financial advice and guidance, insurance. Like, you don't just hire someone that knows money and expect them to cover everything off with money. Like it's the same kind of thing. So it's important with marketing to make sure that you can treat every activity and every channel like its own kind of entity and then examine it.
And like you say, look at what you can achieve in-house and then potentially employ an agency to fill the gaps that you maybe can't manage. So social media you could have covered, but you need to have somebody on the side doing your website development.
Yeah, definitely.
Or creating specific types of content if you're looking at doing Reels or TikTok. So
and
it's a hybrid sort of model.
Yeah, one of the questions we get asked a lot is, at what size should a business be before they hire a marketing manager? And we come up, we work with an organization that has 200 staff and they still don't have a marketing manager. And then we work with companies that have 20 staff but are looking at hiring someone. That also depends on the kind of business that you're doing and how involved someone has to be on the ground when it does come to marketing different campaigns. There is no like one size fits all model for that. But if it works for your business and there's a particular person that has a particular skill set that could sit in that role, then it's definitely something to look at, because if you can't manage it yourself as a business owner, if you've got too many hats, then that could be one of the hats that you let go of.
In that breadth though, does the size of your marketing team or the number of people you have employed to do your marketing, does that have an impact directly on your results?
Well, I think last episode we talked about focus and attention and time investment when it comes to marketing, and because so many small businesses don't allocate a lot of time to focusing on marketing, whether you're a sole trader and it's just you, how much percentage of the time available are you dedicating to marketing, versus if you're a bigger organization and you had a marketing team or a marketing individual, that time as a percentage of total time is also something you can compare. So I guess the question is, how much resources are you dedicating to marketing activities? If you had a marketing team that could invest a lot of time, you could imagine they'd be always looking at stuff, they'd be tweaking campaigns, they'd be pushing for better conversion rates, they'd be challenging poor creative, like they'd be able to stay on top of that. But you can also do that as an individual if you allocate the right amount of time to it. So it's really just about prioritizing, you know, your time and resources as a company, whether you're the company or whether it's a big company. So I found a lot of the time you could have a whole marketing team that's so internal that they aren't really on top of what's happening around them in the industry. So they're not actively pushing for better results. They're not actively challenging themselves to look at what's new, because they're so used to day-to-day working in the business that they're kind of just checking the boxes. Whereas if you had no marketing team, you ran everything yourself, and then you employed other consultants, you could hold them accountable to your goals constantly. And you're constantly pushing them to kind of get the best outcome, and they're learning themselves and they're bringing their knowledge to you. Like, it could be more of a dynamic relationship, because they could get fired any moment, like versus a staff member and the impact that could have if you could, just had to let go of them because they weren't performing. It's a different conversation. So it's an interesting myth, but there's definitely a lot of companies that think all their problems will be solved if they just can afford to hire a marketing manager or a marketing team.
And what about the businesses who are constantly comparing themselves to other businesses out there, thinking that they know something they don't, or they have an edge when it comes to their marketing? They're spending more money, or they're just achieving better results. What would you say about that myth of they're doing something that I don't know about?
It's definitely, as a small business owner, and I know this myself, it's so easy to compare yourself to your competitors or your peers when it comes to marketing, because a lot of marketing is in the public sphere. It's easy to look at something and not only take it as a reflection of how they're going as a business, but also compare it to any activities that you're taking. Unless you can actively say that you're doing the most that you think you're doing, if you're giving 100% into your marketing, I don't think that you can really look at it objectively. It's very easy to kind of get sucked in and feel bad that you're not doing enough. And I think that kind of comes back to this idea of there's nothing new under the sun. It's like a concept we talk about quite a bit, and it's one of our values. And there's always going to be someone out there that's had a better go at something before you, or they've done a better job, or they've got something right that you've got wrong. There's a lot of companies out there that have got it wrong before you, that have tried what you've tried and failed, that you've had more success over. And it's about learning what other people have done and collecting that knowledge so that you can then make decisions about what you do. So it is really easy to look at what other people are doing and kind of feel bad or feel disheartened or worry that you're not on the right track. And it's so much more powerful to take the time to examine what everyone's doing so that you can collect that information and then make your own decisions about what you're doing without worrying about it and feeling bad about it. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
It's so hard sometimes not to get caught up and compare yourself to people. But if you've got the right strategy in place, if you've got the right goals set up, if you kind of know the path that you're heading, and you're giving everything 100%, then I wouldn't really worry about what's happening. I think the only time I would really advise focusing on what competitors are doing are the bigger players. If they do have a really big budget for marketing, then they're probably, and they do have a team that has more time than you do, they're probably running more campaigns, and they're probably trialing and experimenting more language and more channels, and they're putting out different things. And if they're spending all that time doing that, they've probably proven that something has worked, which means they've probably gone through that experimentation process that you may not have gone through before. So taking their lead could be worth it, but at the same time, they may have missed something that you've seen. So if you can go back to the foundations and really make sure you're on the right track with your target market, you know what you're trying to do, then I think that it's something that, you should look at and take with a grain of salt.
Yeah, as with anything in business, I guess. And only you would know your business as well as you do.
Exactly.
No one else out there knows
and
what your business is doing and what your goals are
and
your strategy.
Yeah. So that's definitely one thing to look at. Is it might look the same from the outside, but you don't know what's going on inside.
Yeah. Okay. So let's break it down into some of the marketing lingo that we use and that we're familiar with and use every day. But one thing that I have heard is, is a strategy the same as a plan? And if not, then what's the difference?
So that's an interesting one. I think because marketing is so fluid, it changes all the time. There's not one size fits all for everyone. Often someone will try and capture like a marketing plan in a document that's quite static. So normally if you're producing some kind of report or strategic plan, you do get asked to write down your marketing matrix or your 4 Ps or all these kind of things that dictate how you're going to run marketing for a long period of time. And that's to get everyone on the same page a lot of the time. And I would call that a marketing plan. Mm-hmm. And it's static and it's fixed and it never works. And the reason it doesn't work is it doesn't allow for flexibility when it comes to learning on the fly, which is such an important part of any marketing discipline, is actively watching what's happening. Only 50% of the marketing that you try actually works. We're just guessing what's going to motivate people at the end of the day. So if you don't allow room for flexibility and you don't look above this stuff that's on a piece of paper, then you can't actively make changes and you're never going to get the best outcome. So I call that a marketing plan. If someone told me they had a marketing plan, I would be worried about where they're going to be in 12 months' time. Either they've experimented on the fly and then ditched the plan, or they've followed the plan to a T and then that plan doesn't work out for them and then they wonder what's gone wrong. Yeah. So a marketing strategy, on the other hand, is more this is how we're going to do marketing. Not this is what we're going to do. This is the process we're going to go through as a team to actively get our marketing working all the time. So when I talk about the framework that we implement, that to me is a marketing strategy, because it gives you actions and it gives you meeting agendas and it gives you a strategy behind implementing your marketing. It doesn't have it laid out on a piece of paper with a week by week budget breakdown of how much you're going to spend on what. It's more fluid than that, and it's the strategy we're going to implement to make stuff happen. So focusing on your bottlenecks and using your budget to overcome that's a strategy, right? And I see the difference between them like that. And a lot of people will sit down and they'll try and they have to. They've got budget, so they try and formulate it all ahead of time, and I think it just gets people lost. It's like, I guess, how people talk about agile workflows. It's a bit like that.
Yeah. You have to be agile, and I think, everything to do with marketing is so dynamic. The platforms that we use are constantly changing. The trends are always being updated. There's always something new that you need to be aware of, a new hashtag, a new trending sound on TikTok, and
Definitely.
a new challenge that's come out. So I think, like you say, to have this static plan that doesn't move, doesn't adapt, doesn't change with the times, you're only doing yourself a disservice to stick with that rigid plan.
Yeah. A year is a long time.
Oh, yes, it is. Especially in our industry.
Yeah.
Even if you look back on everything people were doing in marketing 12 months ago compared to what we're doing now.
Reels only just came out on Instagram this year.
Yeah. And the platforms that we're getting used to, so TikTok as an example, that's become I don't know if you know, but TikTok have recently added a B-reel feature.
I noticed that. Yeah.
The platforms are always sort of combining
and
they're learning from each other's successes and mistakes, and so there's no way for us right now to say this is what we'll do for a client in December next year, because how could we know what's going to be in, what's going to be out, what works, what doesn't work?
Yeah. So to that, what I'd recommend instead is creating the behaviors and the habits as an organization to examine marketing regularly, and what checkpoints you go through, and making sure that you give yourself the time to refocus and re-examine what's going on. I think that's the only way you can stay on top of it and get the results. I don't think I've seen any campaign anywhere on any platform that has had no effort put into it and stayed consistently performing, if that makes sense. Even websites get old quickly. The way that the Google algorithm works, for example, they've got an algorithm called Panda, which actively prioritizes websites that update content regularly. They assume that people want to see updated content, so a lot of websites that actively do that will get prioritized, which means your Google rankings will be better for ads and for SEO. So it's one of those things where if you are going to use a technique like SEO, you have to put the effort into managing it, and you have to watch where things are going and match what you're doing with the algorithms. It's definitely something that needs energy, and it's not always going to be the same. So unless you have the habit to check in on it, I don't think it's going to work very well.
And in summary of what we've talked about with all of these different myths, the last myth that I kind of want you to bust is this idea that marketing is this huge scary monster that's constantly changing and evolving, and there's absolutely no way that you can, as a small business owner, keep up with these trends and these changes, and that you're always going to be chasing your tail to catch up.
Yeah, it's definitely scary. Like, I even feel overwhelmed by it a lot of the time. There's that we call it like it's a proliferation of marketing channels. So it's like constantly changing and morphing and growing. And as consumers, our attention is spread so far and wide, and that's only getting worse. So for a business trying to connect with their consumers, they're only going to have more options. So I think it's true, but I think that there is a way you can keep on top of it. And like I said, building the habits to check in and make it a regular practice is one of them. Yeah. If you forget about marketing, if you never think about it, and then suddenly you remember that you don't have any sales coming up next month, so you jump on your computer and you start thinking about marketing, you're going to feel like the year's gone pretty quick. And you're going to feel like it's impossible to keep up because the last time you looked at everything was 4 months ago, and suddenly you're behind. But
suddenly the website has every single page needs to be updated, and
you've got team members on there that haven't worked there in
contact
a year.
details that aren't relevant anymore.
Yeah, so it does feel like things have changed quickly. But if you've got the habit of checking in once a week or every month, it's going to seem a lot slower because you're always looking at things, and small changes are going to seem a lot more easy to manage. But to that end, I think we overestimate the agility of consumers as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't in... I mean, we know technology changes swiftly, and there's a certain generation that will jump from platform to platform, and I appreciate that. And there's a certain number of businesses that are targeting that group. But for a larger market, for millennials or for boomers, they're not jumping around as much, and the platforms that they use are still going to be there, and they're going to be there for quite a while. Same with Google. I mean, I don't really think that anything's come and disrupted the way that we use search dramatically.
No, definitely not.
And I know people use social media to search for businesses, and I do appreciate that, but there's a huge percentage that will still use Google.
Well, it's tried and tested, and it's something that we're all so familiar with. It's embedded in, I'm a millennial. I grew up with Google.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's been my go-to to find information and find answers, find businesses and solutions since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So it's going to take something huge to come along and really disrupt that within me.
Yeah. And I think that we need to remember that as marketers as well is, yes, there will be things on Instagram that change, but the principles will be the same. And the algorithm will roughly be the same. And we just need to make sure that we can pivot what we're doing to suit the technology, but the concepts remain consistent, creating graphics or imagery that connects with people and adds value. That's the same concept, regardless of which platform it's on.
It really comes down to your audience. As a small business, you know your audience, you know the demographic, or you should do, and that will definitely influence the choices that you make when it comes to your marketing and the platforms that you use and how you use them.
Definitely. And that's important to remember. And when you're growing your business, if you remember to focus on your consumer and where they spend their time, you need to make sure that you're focusing on that and not getting it confused with where you're spending your time as a user. A lot of businesses will ignore marketing channels that they don't personally use, thinking that their customers don't use it. So at the same time, we need to make sure we are open to noticing things that are happening around us. And that could be as easy as, checking certain websites or trend websites and things like that every now and then to kind of see what's out there, or talk to people. If you want to engage like a consultant or a marketing professional to just help you kind of make some decisions so that you can kind of, again, marry your knowledge with their knowledge and figure out what the right path for you is. I think that's going to make it a lot less confusing. There's so many times I've had clients call and ask me questions, and I just about certain platforms or whether they should be doing this, or they saw this and they want to try it. A lot of the time it's so easy to be like, you know what? No, you shouldn't be going on TikTok. And I'll tell you why. Because if we focus our energy on this instead, which is proven for you and your business, this would work, or things like that. That filtering system needs to be there.
Yeah.
So they're the kind of myths that there's so many more questions we get every day. And even as we've been talking, I've been thinking about so many more, and I'd love to kind of keep adding them into conversations. And if you've got any that you want to send through to us, you can send them through to us. That would be fantastic. And we can kind of answer those and pick them off over time. But I want to make sure that if you are going to go down a marketing journey as a small business, you aren't holding on to any of these misconceptions, because it will dictate the confidence that you go into an activity with. And you don't want to kind of write yourself off before you've even started. You really do need an open mind.
Yeah. And you shouldn't, as with anything, you shouldn't act out of fear or, a reaction and be, sort of fly off the rails because you think, oh, this new trend is out and this new platform is out, so we need to get onto it and we need to create all this content for an audience that isn't even our target audience.
I met a gentleman the other day and he was like, my daughter created a TikTok for me. And I was like, the number of times I have heard a sentence that started with, my daughter or my son created this like obscure social media channel for our business that we haven't touched in a year. Like it's crazy. If I had $1 for every time that had happened, then I think it's one of those crazy things that I think we need to bust right now so that it stops happening and everyone stops wasting their time on it.
Yes, and I think that's a great note to end the episode on. So thank you so much for busting those myths for us, Amy.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, Shannon.